Very quickly, I was thinking that the 4 factors that were listed, we should add another 5th, and that should be the psychological factor, by which I mean the mindsets. And very quickly I'll tell you that I was the note taker in the first meeting between President Haq and Mrs. Indira Gandhi in Zimbabwe, in Harare, in 1980, April. As soon as Mrs. Indira Gandhi entered our hotel room where the President was staying, she said, "Jinnah साहब, मुझे तो पाकिस्तान से बहुत खौफ आता है और मुझे ये ख्वाब आता है कि पाकिस्तान ने हमला कर दिया।" तो जिन्ना साहब ने कहा कि बेगम साहबा हमारे साथ भी यही मर्ज है, मगर let's talk about the subjects at hand. The mindset. A diplomat once told me that you Indians and Pakistanis are so nice, are nice people, but it's incredible how nasty you can be to each other. So, any comments on the psychological factor?
A very quick observation, but I hope it will draw a comment from our very distinguished speaker. Mani has been so persuasive. Sorry, I should have introduced myself, Tanveer Khan. You've been so persuasive that I'm tempted to suggest that you may have a higher number of converts in Pakistan than in India. Would that be a fair comment?
So, I'm a national defense university, and I'm a civilian. When I was growing up, born and brought up in England, I was privileged, I think, to be in a very multicultural environment. Amongst my best friends were Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims from Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. And we enjoyed our youth together as good friends and had no disturbances whatsoever. And I guess I reflect the hopes of those that were there long time before I even existed, before 47, great experiences. However, I now exist in a real different world, where real concerns are paramount and in your face every day. And you know Pakistan's suffering immensely, immensely. And it's not recognized. But I also find that we have hope. With people like yourself, for example. I find more importantly that we're conditioned, like my elder here and Ambassador Naqvi said, from an entrenched sense of insecurity on both sides. It's not a one-way street. It goes both ways. It's not just Pakistani military. I find it also from the other side. Yet I was in Bangladesh about a year ago at a SOC forum on counterterrorism. And I was with an Indian colonel for a whole week. We were in discussions all the time, especially now with a few drinks, which helped. And he gave me a leeway to indicate that there are concerns on both sides in this way. But we have to challenge this. It's a psychological element amongst both nations that we continue to pound in against each other. And there needs to be made, a strategic decision needs to be made at the highest levels to change that direction. And that's where the political will needs to go. Before anything really happens, to change the insecurity.
That was a very, very scholarly way of Egypt. Rehana Heather, I've lived in India twice with my parents.
Sorry, can you please
Can you hear now?
Yes. Now.
Just 2 very brief points. I'd like to say, first of all, just an extension of what Ambassador Khan said. Not just a treaty of friendship, peace and cooperation. We have an actual no-war pact on the table, proposed to India for quite some years. The second point is, in your context about having dialogue on terrorism, there was a joint anti-terror mechanism set up along with the composite dialogue. It was discontinued along with the dialogue. It did exist, the forum. It met in 2007. Thank you.
Shankar Aiyar, former soldier. I have just one question to you, which is with regard to the water issue. You made a point of emphasizing.
Sorry, could you take the mic a little closer?
You made a point of emphasizing how important water is. And then you emphasized that in this water issue was in fact a success. Yes, it has been a success, but it's facing problems now. And so perhaps you could revert to that as well. When the Baghdad Dam dispute occurred, and it was sent for arbitration, the chap in charge of water World Bank was John Briscoe. John Briscoe wrote an article immediately after that was settled by the Swiss arbitrator engineer. And what he wrote was, in fact, that Pakistan's safeguards have been taken away in this settlement. There were two technical safeguards that Pakistan had for the rivers that were Pakistan shared. And the two technical safeguards were that all dams built there would give a certain capacity, A, and B, would have no sluice gates. So that India does not have the capability of holding back water or releasing it at will. It allows both of them. I suggest that the Indus water treaty needs to be renegotiated. I agree with the entire thrust of your report, which is that all disputes can be solved. I think we need to find new solutions, new problems. Thank you.
I'm Shankar Aiyar. I'm a student of Peace and Conflict Studies at the National Defence University, South. Sir, I was a part of the group of Pakistani students who just visited India a few months ago, and this was, to our knowledge, the first exchange or the first meeting between Indians and Pakistanis since Mumbai attacks had happened. Much as I agree with everything that you've said, and I can only just confirm and reconfirm all of your points, I would just make few requests that we had made during our trip to India. First of all, sir, I think that there is so much in common in the Indian and Pakistani culture. At least the Pakistani entertainment channels should go on air in India, and if not the news channels. And let's talk about entertainment, and we've talked about Sania Mirza, and we've talked about the Bollywood stars and all that, and I think this would be really a good addition. And secondly, this was again just my personal perception that when I was on my first visit to India, I didn't take any foreign currency with me. I only had Pakistani currency, and I could not really imagine that it will not be possible for me to get it exchanged in India. I just thought that it would be available, and it was not my first foreign travel. But when I arrived at Mumbai airport and they told me that we don't exchange Pakistani currency anymore, I was really, I was really hurt. And although we found a solution later on, but I would say that, remembering that very strongly, I would request that when we are talking about, peace efforts at every level, let's also probably take into account these little things that common Pakistanis and Indians face every now and then whenever they travel across the border. Thank you, sir.
The question that I have is a very straightforward one. I think one of the issues that you identified is the water issue, which I think is going to be the future Kashmir problem faster than India, perhaps even more problematic. What India, given the spirit that you have in trying to resolve the differences between the two countries, is willing to set up a joint management water commission? because I think in terms of having joint strategic, either doing a quantitative analysis or whatever is one thing, but actually the problem, really, the solution lies in having joint management of the water resources. And I think that is very, very critical. I'd like to see what the thinking of India on this issue. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to start by welcoming Shankar Aiyar, an old friend from Delhi, my time in Delhi, and also to thank him for a wonderful speech and for making very substantial suggestions, all of which I wholeheartedly support. I'd like to refer to your reference to water as being as important or next to Kashmir. Water is indeed very serious and is going to become more and more serious. You mentioned that the quantity of water available to both Pakistan and India has reduced. You did not say why. It's not only the pressure of population, but also climate. And because climate change affects the two sources of water in the subcontinent, which is the glacial melt and the monsoons, both of which are highly vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. So I think the Indus Water Treaty has so far served us well. It has provided a mechanism for settling disputes, and even the mechanism of neutral expert or arbitration are very much enshrined in the treaty. But I think those mechanisms are not sufficient, because the Indus Water Treaty does not refer to or accommodate some of the issues that have come up since 1960, when the agreement was signed, such as climate change, quality of water, the quality of underground water, and new technology, which has changed the assumptions and the science of hydropower generation. So I think the Indus Water Treaty should be revisited, not renegotiated. And I don't support renegotiation because that would not be in the interest of Pakistan. We should renegotiate the Indus Water Treaty and discuss water. Now, naturally, bringing water on the agenda will take time. So I would suggest that until the time that we agree to start to include water in as one of the issues in the uninterruptible and uninterrupted dialogue, India should, on its own, as a confidence-building measure, do certain things which it has never done. It has never provided timely information to Pakistan about its hydropower generation plans, about various things that it intends to do, which created tremendous tension in 2009 and 10, when water became less, not because of Indian actions, but because of climate change and the natural climatological phenomena. So I would suggest that as a gesture to Pakistan, as a gesture, as a contribution in the confidence building process, India should provide timely information, it should offer to exchange information, the research that it has been doing, the work that it has been doing on observing the glacial melt, and some of the things that Manmohan Singh announced at the recent SAARC summit. Those offers should be implemented unilaterally. Thank you.
Adab and welcome back to your second home, Shankar Aiyar. Before I come to my question, I'd just like to thank you. It's a debt of gratitude that I have owed you since July 2010, when you came to my aid in Abbottabad at a conference at Sanghi Development Foundation when I was being attacked by Taliban Taliban victims and IDPs from Swat. And it was just you who came to my aid and saved my life that day. So I think I owe you a public debt of gratitude, and I'd like to say it publicly today. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Aiyar. My question, which is more in the nature of a suggestion, but I'd like to hear your comments on it, please. In your excellent, shall we say, nuskha, prescription for the way forward, which I agreed with and endorsed entirely, two things came out. One, that you said a lot of unpalatable things in a very dignified and respectful manner. And there are people present in this hall who will understand what I mean when I say this. And secondly, I think there is a need to go beyond the military and the diplomatic solutions to these almost intractable problems. For example, I would like to suggest, Aiyar, that we need to bring Indian and Pakistani historians together to rewrite our completely distorted history books. I've seen the history books on your side and our side. We need to bring people like Professor Uma Chakravarti and Professor Mubarak Ali together to sit down and draw an educational curriculum for history. And I think there's an urgency to this because, as you yourself pointed out, more than 90% of Indians and Pakistanis, I would almost say more than 95 to 98% of Indians and Pakistanis are now the new generation or the post-independence generation. We are losing our elder generation at a very fast pace, and we need them if we are to do a good job of rewriting these history textbooks. Thank you.
The last two questions.
Sir, it was great to hear you there. My name is Zahir and I am from Qaid-e-Azam University, IR department. My question is that how can we counter the hate narrative which has somehow got penetrated in our both societies, and perhaps and I'm sure it is the biggest impediment in the creation of South Asian consciousness or South Asian identity and ineffectiveness of SAARC. Thank you.
I am Nasir Away from GeoTV Islamabad. So my question is, you just gave 7 points with an impressive example. And now you are in an unofficial capacity in you are in unofficial capacity and you gave 7 points which are really impressive. And my point is, the moment you will be in official position, or anyone would be in official position, we won't be even give these points, and we won't even be in a position to give solutions to these points. So we usually in South Asia look towards conflict management instead of conflict resolution. The time for the conflict management, I think, has passed away. So we must move towards the conflict resolution. Thank you.
Very loud. Okay.
May I express my deep gratitude to all of you who have asked questions or made comments on my remarks, and my very, very deep gratitude for the general welcome the tenor of my remarks has received here in this audience. It certainly does enthuse me to continue with this crusade, for I have been engaged in it against very severe odds for the last 30 years. And it would be a dream accomplished if one were to succeed. But even if one doesn't succeed, I think it's an endeavor that is worth having undertaken. I would like to begin by referring to 2 points which I think are interrelated: the psychological problems of moving beyond the past and the institutional problems, particularly in relation to the military. With regard to the psychological problems, we wouldn't be here if these problems didn't exist. And the fact that they do exist should not, I think, keep us from attempting to change them. For the fact of the matter is that there is a tremendous change in mindsets as between the situation that prevailed from about 1930, or go back further to the 1920s and 1947 on the one hand, what happened during the generation that had been Indian and become Pakistani, or which had known Pakistan as an integral part of India and then suddenly found itself deprived. The right hand of Mother India and the left hand of India cut off into Pakistan and Bangladesh. I think we have shown